Hey YouTube, Alex Conley here, and in today's video I'm making a counterpart to my advantages of traveling while you're young video. And so in this video I want to talk about some of the disadvantages of traveling while you're young. And to go ahead and get right into it, first off, you're probably going to have less money than you will have later in your life. So typically, most people that make prudent decisions over the course of their life, their savings, their salary, their earning potential goes up. It starts, low, start of their career, they don't know a lot, they get more skills, experience, and they earn more money over time. So when you're at the start, you're probably not going to have as much money when you do travel. I was fortunate to be traveling for work from like 20 until 23. So there was a fair amount of travel that I could do because I was making money while I was doing it. But even then, I was still somewhat budget conscious. So you're probably going to have to be more budget conscious when you're traveling as a young person. You're probably going to have to be careful about the level of accommodation that you're choosing. You're going to have to be careful about what kind of meals you're having. You're probably not going to be having steak and sushi every day. It's simply just probably going to be out of your budget. You're probably going to be considering budget accommodation, so you're probably going to be looking at smaller hotels, maybe older hotels, hostels. I opt for kind of budget hotels, and I opt for smaller Airbnbs because I'm just not big on the hostel environment. I like my privacy. I like being able to spend a lot of time alone. So, uh, you know, I tend toward more affordable Airbnbs and hotels. But keep in mind that when you are younger and you are traveling, you're going to have to probably be a bit more budget conscious. Next, you're probably looking more like budget destinations rather than expensive countries. So you're probably looking at countries like Southeast Asia, maybe cheaper parts of Europe. You're not looking as many high-end countries like Japan, Australia, New Zealand. Um, what else would be? United States would be another expensive country. Certainly, cities like London, Scandinavian countries like Finland, Norway, Sweden. And if you do consider these more expensive places, you're probably going to be more budget conscious. You may choose to have a limited amount of time in these countries instead of doing a month. You may, do 3, 4, 5 days a week or so. On this trip that I've been on, the shortest time I've spent in a country total has been Japan. I did, I think, 12 or 13 days in Japan simply because Japan's more expensive. It's more expensive than Cambodia. It's more expensive than the Philippines. It's more expensive than here in Malaysia. It tends to be a pricey place, and so as a young person traveling, I had to keep in mind, I love Japan. I'm part Japanese. I want to spend time there, but it's going to be the most expensive part of my trip, and I need to moderate the amount of time I spend there. So certainly when you're younger and you're a little bit more budget oriented, you're going to have to balance your desire for traveling in expensive places with your budget. So if you do a period of extended travel, you may have to choose longer periods of time in more affordable countries, and then shorter periods of time in more expensive countries. Next, you may not get the respect that older travelers get. So in some countries, there tends to be more respect given toward older people. And Japan is an example of this, and younger people may not get as much respect, or they may be expected to defer to older people. So keep in mind as a younger traveler, if you do certain types of excursions, or you want to go to certain restaurants, or you want to engage in certain activities, that you may be expected to defer to older people. You may be expected to give them priority. So depending on where you're going, you may have to keep that in mind as a younger traveler. Next, so kind of in line with some of the budget bits I mentioned, you may have to be a bit more craftier when it comes to booking. You may have to be a bit more flexible. Rather than flying out on a Friday and flying back on a Sunday, you may have to opt to fly out on like a Thursday, a Tuesday, a Wednesday, some of the days where airfare tends to be a little bit cheaper. Alongside that, if you are going somewhere expensive, you may have to look at like a Monday through a Friday, leaving on a Friday, getting there on a Monday, rather than spending the weekend there where accommodation prices may be higher and you're paying a premium for things that you wouldn't pay if you were there on weekdays. So keep in mind that you may have to be craftier and a bit more flexible on booking. You may have to pick your travel days on weekdays as opposed to weekends. Next, you'll probably have to skip luxury at least some of the time. So I mentioned before, picking less expensive accommodations, picking more affordable restaurants. Well, even then, you may find out about certain excursions or certain activities that are pretty expensive and outside your budget range. So I may be going to South Africa in April, and I looked into Safari and I found out that Safari can cost easily $1,000 to $2,000 a day, and that's outside of my budget range. So that's something that I may have to wait until I'm older and have more money to dedicate to doing that kind of thing. And similarly, snorkeling, diving, these types of activities can be pretty pricey, especially outside of Southeast Asia. You're going to be paying a premium for the workers to help you. You're going to be paying a premium for gasoline. You'll be paying a premium for accommodation. These types of things can get really expensive. So keep in mind that when you are traveling on a budget as a young person, you may not be able to afford all the luxuries that you hear about or read about or see online. Kind of alongside that, if you're going hiking in Nepal, a guide can cost easily $50 per day. And I know for some people that may be a little bit more well off, that's pretty affordable and cheap. But certainly if you're looking at a week or 2 week long trip, that kind of cost can really add up and eat into your budget. So keep in mind when you're traveling as a young person, this often means being more budget conscious and foregoing certain kinds of luxury. So another tip in line with being budget conscious is I think that younger people traveling need to be especially conscious of touts and scams. Sorry about that, there are some birds squawking outside. So, back to what I was talking about, being more careful about touts and scams. If you're on a budget and you have, let's say, for whatever, just for the sake of the argument, $5,000 dedicated to your 6-week trip, and 2 weeks in, you get scammed for $1,000. Well, now you're having to reorient the rest of your trip's budget. And it's not like you're an older person with, say, a substantial amount of savings where it hurts, but it's not going to be super extremely drastic in terms of affecting the outcome of your experience. You may have to totally pivot and rework everything, cut out certain activities, eat fewer meals, eat fewer treats. It could just be really devastating. So when you are younger and you are budget traveling, I think you need to be especially careful and read up on touts and scams and your destinations of choice, making sure you're not going to get into situations where you could get ripped off. That's why I recommend rideshare apps. Just as an example, taxi scams are notorious around the world, but if you're using a rideshare app, the price is basically given prior to booking, so you know what you're getting into, rather than getting a nasty surprise at your destination. Finally, so this is maybe an obvious one, but if you're younger, you probably have less travel experience than some older people, and so you might not know what you like. You may not have the experience that older travelers have, so you may not know yet that you don't like the beach. You may not know yet that you don't like the mountains. These types of things come with experience, and so if you haven't had experience traveling, whether it be domestically or abroad, you may simply not know what to go for, where you're going to get the best experiences based on your temperament and preferences. So that's something that comes with age and comes with time. So definitely keep in mind that traveling should get better as you get older and get more experience, and that just because you have a negative travel experience when you're younger, don't write off traveling in general. And yeah, just be open to refining your process over time. So I hope this video has been helpful. My name is Alex Conley. If you enjoy this video, if you enjoy this type of content, definitely give me a thumbs up, subscribe, and check out my other content as well. And I will see you next time.